how excited is it to have that ABC staple with White Sox Chicago Cubs?
Well, it's pretty cool, especially as someone who grew up, watching baseball on ABC in Central Vermont. We always had Channel 8 coming out of Maine and watching Monday Night Baseball. This week, when I was putting out requests to, Cubs and White Sox people, as part of that request, I was saying, oh, yeah, by the way, we're not just on ESPN, we're on ABC. And you could feel in the other end of the phone of, oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, not only is it national television, but it's on network television on ABC. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, this game had a lot of intrigue at the start of the season. Still has some intrigue now, but maybe for different reasons with the moves the Cubs have made over the last couple of weeks. Where the White Sox are at, where the Cubs are at. How do you see this one kind of playing out right now?
Well, one of the big questions I have going to the weekend series is how much of a takeover Wrigley Field will there be by White Sox fans? I know on the secondary ticket market, you've got Cubs fans who are unhappy about some of their favorite players being traded, putting their tickets up, and White Sox fans probably buying up. A couple weeks ago, we had the White Sox on Sunday Night Baseball, and you saw in Milwaukee, and you saw how well that fan base traveled and how much excitement there is around that team. I came off of that game believing that the White Sox are a team, to me, that could win the World Series. The one question I had was the back end of their bullpen, how much depth they had there. And they go and trade for Craig Kimbrell. So they address that. And on the other side, I'm fascinated to see the next generation of Cubs begin to form. I know that Cubs fans were not happy about those trades. I will tell you that, executives with other teams felt like that given the circumstances that, Rizzo and Baez and Bryant and so many others were eligible for free agency or were going to walk away, the feeling was, look, they had to trade these guys and they had to get return to set themselves up going into the future.
So, with that said, what does the future look like for the Cubs from your perspective?
That it's going to take 2 or 3 years, going forward. First off, the best parts of their farm system are players who are really young, who probably aren't going to be a factor in 2022. But by the time we get to 2023, 24, they'll be in a better place. And here's the reality of it. By, having all these expensive older players move on, they have tremendous payroll flexibility. So in the free agent market after the 22 season, after 23, they'll probably be aggressive. And I don't think we should rule out the possibility that, maybe one of these guys will come back. I think the most prominent candidate to watch is Javier Baez, because they were so close to signing him in the spring of 2020. Pandemic hit, those contract talks blew up. I would not at all be surprised to see him back in a Cubs uniform next summer.
And then on the other side of it, White Sox, does it feel like now is the time for them to pounce on the World Series? Otherwise, it could be a missed opportunity.
There's no doubt. Look, with the trade of Chris Sale and other deals they made, they were setting themselves up for one great run. And they're right now in the middle of that window. Having this group of young players, this excellent rotation that can shut down bats in October, the bullpen the way that it is. I think Jerry Reinsdorf, now in his mid-80s, he's devoted to the idea of perhaps winning a World Series again. He is known for his time as the Bulls owner. I met Jerry when I was 15 years old, coincidentally, and there's no doubt in my mind, he's a baseball guy first and foremost. And that seems to be what the White Sox have done this year, load up with Jerry's money.
Is this kind of what this rivalry needed right now, though? Maybe a little boost of the South Side pride coming back out there in Chicago and, some opportunity to really make this a competitive series once again?
Yeah, I think so, because the White Sox are always, because of the relative popularity of the two teams, the White Sox are always going to be the little brother. And the question is, when do they step up and challenge the big brother? And now is that time. The Cubs will have universal popularity always. Even the disgruntled Cubs fans next summer, when they start to put together that team, you're going to see hope build in the fan base. Where now is kind of a cool time because this White Sox team is absolutely dangerous. And, when the dust settles at the end of 2021, if the Chicago were to get its second baseball championship in 6 years, that would be pretty cool. And it would certainly set up some of the, rivalry between the franchises as we move forward.
Wilson Contreras kind of becomes the face of the Chicago Cubs right now. How do you think his maturity stepping into that maybe leadership role a little bit more can play out for them?
There's no doubt that if you were to build a clubhouse around one player's energy and passion, Wilson is a perfect guy for that. I am going to be curious as we get into the offseason and the Cubs begin to sort of evaluate where they're going to be with him on talks about a long-term contract and whether or not he's going to become the latest player to move out. Because this winter would be a natural time to have that conversation. Hey, Wilson, do you want to sign a long-term deal? If you don't work out terms, now would be the time to trade him because his value is never going to be higher. That said, that's a very analytic evaluation. I suspect after the criticism they take from Cubs fans that they're going to be cognizant that they don't want to move out absolutely everybody. Wilson, moving forward is in a natural place to be a leader.
For Sunday night's game, what do you expect that atmosphere to be like? Wrigley, obviously the history there, but it's always a unique feel added to this stage, and it makes it even better, I feel like.
Yeah, and no matter, whether the Cubs are up or the White Sox are up or the Cubs are down or the White Sox are down, when you have, two teams from Chicago playing each other, there's going to be a special energy there. And because of I think the nature of where the two teams are, it's going to have a little extra juice. Maybe let's say if the Cubs win on Friday, they win on Saturday, then all of a sudden, there's going to be that feeling of, it might not be our year as a team, but it was our weekend.
Yeah, for sure. All righty, I've got to ask, Field of Dreams game is a week away now. There's a lot of hype around it here in Iowa, a lot of excitement. Is there as much hype and energy around this nationally as we're feeling here in the state of Iowa?
Not yet. I think there will be as we get closer. And I got to say, as someone who grew up on a dairy farm in central Vermont, I am so jealous of the broadcasters who are doing that game. I've asked Major League Baseball, look, can I just go there and hang out in the cornfields and come out of the ranks there or pull up in a tractor or something? I was so rooting for ESPN to broadcast this game so I could be part of the, among the corn stalks, hanging out there. That is going to be so much fun. And I do think once we get closer, there'll be a lot more focus on it.